Good afternoon. My name is Rabbi Michael Miller. I'm the Executive Vice President and CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, of the JCRC. Thank you all for being here. I first want to acknowledge some of the dignitaries who are joining us here today. Malcolm Hoenlein, who is the Executive Vice Chair of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations and the Co-Chair of the New York Israel Commission. Rabbi David Zwiebel of the Agudath Israel of America. Bruce Ratner, Executive Chairman, Forest City Enterprises and Chairman of the Board Museum of Jewish Heritage. Rabbi Mordechai Kamenetsky of the Yeshiva of South Shore and his son, Rabbi Chaim Kamenetsky. Amy Bressman, President of the UJA Federation of New York. Paul Adler, former Rockland County Democratic Chairman and Advisory Board Member, Holocaust Museum and Center for Tolerance and Education. Carla Bonet, the American Jewish Committee, the AJC Global. Maury Litwack of the Orthodox Union. Alex Rosenberg of the Anti-Defamation League. Rabbi Jay Rosenbaum. Andrea Winograd, the Holocaust Museum and Center for Tolerance and Education, and Michael Cohn of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. We're also joined today by members of the Governor's Cabinet, Melissa DeRosa, Secretary to the Governor, and Eric Gertler, President and CEO of the Empire State Development. And we're joined as well by individuals who really represent why we're here today. We're privileged to have with us Al Moskin, a concentration camp liberator, World War II veteran, and Holocaust educator, and the following Holocaust survivors: Samuel Hersley, Betty Migdal, Lillian Feintuch, Helen Kurtz, Jean Kurtz, Riha Sokolow, Chana Shapiro, Steve Zuckerman, Reese Lerner, Tatiana Belkovskaya, Emil Wahlberg, Eva Friedman, and Faye Morgenio. All of their family members who joined them today are also welcomed, and we're very pleased that you're joining us. Let me now just introduce the program. I have the privilege of introducing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo. Governor Cuomo will speak, followed by Sam Hersley, an Auschwitz survivor, and following Mr. Hersley is Malcolm Hoenlein, the Executive Vice Chair of the Conference of Presidents. And then we're going to have Q&A. Zachor, remember. Zachor is a clarion call of the Jewish people. Zachor, remember, is a religious imperative of our faith. Zachor, remember, is the internalization of our history. Zachor, remember, brings the past into the present. The governor's trip, in fact, to Auschwitz to represent not only the state of New York, but the governor will be the only United States elected official at the commemoration of the 75th anniversary of liberation. The governor's trip is an act of, it's a fulfillment of Zachor, bridging our present to the dark past to ensure a brighter future. I know that Governor Cuomo understands and appreciates this thoroughly. I saw it in his face this past summer at Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Museum. He was terribly troubled by the acts of anti-Semitism in New York State, and particularly here in New York City. And he told me, Michael, when the time is right, we should hold a very large demonstration here in New York. Governor, you inspired our Solidarity March that was sponsored by JCRC and the UJA Federation on January 5th. You were the one who led tens of thousands of people, most of whom were New Yorkers, many of whom were Jewish, but there were many non-New Yorkers and many non-Jews who crossed the Brooklyn Bridge symbolically into Brooklyn, where all too many of these acts of anti-Semitism have occurred. Leaders lead, and you, Governor Cuomo, led us then and continue to lead us now in an effort to stamp out hate in our state. On behalf of all of us representing the organized Jewish community in New York and across the country, we thank you for the significant role, the central role that you have played in ensuring the safety and security of the Jewish community here in New York and across the country. We are proud that you are representing us when you travel to Poland and stand together with other world leaders to commemorate the liberation of the victims of the Holocaust in Auschwitz 75 years ago. It is now my pleasure and honor to introduce the Governor of the State of New York, Andrew M. Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today on this important day. To Michael Miller and to Malcolm Hoenlein, we are blessed that we have such powerful, important leaders at this difficult time. And what Michael and Malcolm have done, the way they've rallied communities across the state, across this nation, to stand up and be counted, we're blessed. Let's give them a round of applause and thank them. I want to thank the president of the World Jewish Congress, Ronald Lauder, who has been organizing the event, the commemoration at Auschwitz, who is actually bringing 105 survivors back to Auschwitz. And let's give him a round of applause. I'll see him when I'm there. To all our colleagues who are here, to all our friends, Michael said it very well. We're going to commemorate the 75th anniversary of Auschwitz, pay respect, to remember, as Elie Wiesel would say, to bear witness, to stand up and bear witness. And we have Holocaust survivors who are here with us today and liberators. And our first message is to them. We say, God bless you. We are so sorry for what you went through and what you endured, and the pain that you had to feel is unimaginable for most of us. But that you stood up, that you resisted, and that you have gone on is a tribute to each and every one of you and an inspiration to all of us. Let's give them a round of applause, please. 75th anniversary. In some ways, it seems like it was a lifetime ago. In some ways, it seems like it was just yesterday. It's an important time to go, the 75th anniversary, to honor the survivors, to honor the liberators, and to remember, as Michael said, to remember the lesson, to remember what society, what humanity is capable of. It seems unimaginable, but it was real, and it happened. And 6 million Jewish people lost their lives. So it's important to be there on the 75th anniversary. It's also an important time to be there because of what's going on in this nation today. And the message of the Holocaust survivors rings especially powerful today. 2018, the FBI says, had the highest record of hate crimes in the United States of America. 2019, in this state, great state of New York, 189 hate crimes, most of them anti-Semitic, 189. And obviously, we've all been watching the violence around the country. But in some ways, I thought, not here. It would never happen in New York. New York, we know better. New York, we know each other too well. We grew up together. We live diversity. We enjoy diversity. The Jewish community and New York are one in the same. But now even in the state of New York, even in the state of New York. So it is an important time. The anti-Semitic acts that we have seen, the worst of which was in Muncie and Rockland County, are as disgusting as they are shocking. And our message is the same message. What happened in Muncie must happen never again. What's happened on the streets of Brooklyn must happen never again. The anti-Semitism we've seen across the state must never happen again. As the state government, our message is loud and clear. We have zero tolerance for any discrimination. It is illegal, it is immoral, it will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, period. And I am committed to that. As a government, we're doing everything we can. We put more funding for the hate crimes in the state police. We proposed the first domestic terrorism law in the United States of America. Call it what they are. These are terrorists who are doing this. And we are also putting more funding in security for private organizations to provide security for themselves. But government can protect, but government can't resolve this issue. People are going to have to resolve this issue. They're going to have to open their minds and open their hearts. They're going to have to understand each other, understand the Jewish community, understand the Holocaust, understand what happened, that we lost 6 million Jewish people just because of their religious beliefs. And this is a nation that was founded on religious freedom. How repugnant to the concept of America to show anger or hate to anyone based on race or religion. It's what this nation was founded on. We have to remember that. We have to teach our young people that. And we also have to open our heart and remember who we are as Americans and who we are as New Yorkers and how we accept and how we understand and how we embrace and how we tolerate differences. That's what this is all about. That's what the trip to Auschwitz is all about. That's what we've been working here in this state about. We're going to bring mementos from New Yorkers that will leave at Auschwitz, people who wanted to bring a piece of New York to leave at Auschwitz, so the trip and the memories will live on. It's my pleasure now to introduce a true hero, a survivor who was in 5 concentration camps, who survived Auschwitz, who spent about 2 years in Auschwitz. He is now in Forest Hills, Queens. I have a special affection for Queens boys. Once a Queens boy, always a Queens boy. But this is a Queens hero. This is a New York hero, a hero to everyone who's here today, Mr. Samuel Gertler.
My name is Samuel Gertler. I lost my parents, my brother, and over 70 cousins and uncles and aunts in the Holocaust. I myself was in Auschwitz for 1 year when I was 18 years old. I'm the only survivor for my entire family. I made it out, and I'm lucky to be alive. I am here because we cannot never forget what happened there. What happened to my family, 6 million who weren't so lucky, who didn't make it out. Thank you, Governor, for addressing the recent rise of anti-Semitism here in New York and around the world by showing solidarity with the Jewish community and going to Poland. Tragic that 75 years after the liberation of Auschwitz, anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial is growing. Please never forget the story. For all who cannot tell the story, it should not be forgotten. Thank you again, Governor.
I'm Malcolm Hoenlein of the Conference of Presidents. And it would be legitimate to ask, why remember? It's 75 years already, 7.5 decades since the liberation of Auschwitz. Why remember? Why is this trip so important, and the event that was held last week in Jerusalem and tomorrow in Auschwitz so important for us? There are those who say, let it go, it's enough, we're tired of it. Many of the leaders who gave great speeches last week go home and tolerate anti-Semitism in their own countries and don't match their words with deeds. It is important for all of us, because for us, the remembrance, Zachor, as Michael said, is not about the past. It's about the present and the future. They go back there to remind the world of the lessons, of the horrendous events that took place, the attempts to annihilate the Jews, the suffering, the destruction. It is not about just what happened 7.5 decades ago. It is about the present, and more importantly, about our commitment to the future. We look back in the spirit of Zachor, which is not history, it's remembrance. And remembrance is different because it's a dynamic process where you look at all that caused it and all that flowed from it, so that you can identify it in the future, so that we can learn the lessons of for the future. We want to spare our children and our grandchildren the same fate that 1.5 million children suffered during World War II, and millions of others, as well as tens of millions of non-Jews. The secrets of the past are the keys to the future. That those who learn the lessons can meet the challenges to understand what we face today. We look back to those troubled days in order to assure that we can look forward with confidence, that it doesn't happen again, and that the world not remain silent in the face of rising Jew hatred and increasing anti-Semitism as it did 8 decades ago. Martin Luther King warned us we will not be judged by the attacks of our enemy, but by the silence of our friends. That a world that was indifferent then cannot afford to be indifferent now. Winston Churchill said, the further back you look, the further ahead you will see. That is why we look back now. That is why we look to recognize the challenges of today. I suggest that any of you who don't get it, ask any of the survivors what they see, what they hear, what they smell about events that are taking place today. They will tell you. Ask your parents, ask your grandparents, and they will tell you, they will be a guide to us, that we have to face this reality. The pandemic of Jew hatred around the world and even in New York State is something that should be alarming to all of us. Governor, I was with Elie Wiesel when he told President Reagan, who was about to go to Bitburg, Mr. President, that is not your place. Governor Cuomo, your place tomorrow is indeed with the survivors and world leaders at Auschwitz. You represent the largest Jewish community outside of Israel. New York is a world capital, and your presence will add a clarion call that we will not forget, we will learn the lessons, and we will not tolerate Jew hatred in any form or any place, no matter the source or the expression or the effort to disguise it. You did that when you issued the executive order, among the first to do so, to fight BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement, because you recognized that this was not a political expression or a free speech issue, that it was anti-Semitism under a different guise. And this was a hallmark in the battle to expose the true intent when they use anti-Zionism and anti-Israelism invective as a cover for their Jew hatred. Your leadership in introducing the domestic terrorism law, the first in the country, is a vital step in the effort to define, identify, and fight the acts of violence motivated by hate. Never again, I believe, is a sacred pledge that every generation, Jew and non-Jew alike, has to take, young and old, everybody. It is about today and tomorrow, and your plan to have every school child learn about the Holocaust and to go to the museum in Battery Park will help assure it, and your help for the security of institutions. Governor, you've been consistent in your novel stance, in your moral stance, in your strong stance against anti-Semitism, racism, and bigotry. Your words count, your deeds count more. Your voice is more important than ever in this regard as the numbers of incidents rises in New York, around America, and around the world. We thank you for undertaking this trip. I know for the survivors who were brought here by Blue Card and Nachas and other groups, that they share that feeling, that identity with you, that you speak for them and carry their message. We know that you will be accompanied by our good friend, their president and executive of the CEO of Empire State, and that your secretary will be attending as well, to join you, to stand in solidarity with the world leaders who will be gathered there, to carry the message. Our words will be matched by our deeds, that we will make the effort, that we will extend all resources to make sure that we fight back this rising tide of hatred, that you will bear testimony and you will hear the testimony. Never again has to be a reality. No more crocodile tears for dead Jews. No more memorials for dead Jews. We want the world to stand up for living Jews and a living Jewish state. You will carry that message that never again will become a hallmark call of this generation.
Any questions for myself or Mr. Miller or Mr. Hohenlein? You silenced everyone. It's never happened to me before. Myself, Secretary to Governor Melissa DeRosa, Eric Gertler, head of the Empire State Development Corporation. We'll do the ceremony. We then have to stay overnight. There's no night flight, and we'll come back the next morning. I will, we have anything on this topic? Otherwise, let these good people go about their business, and then I'll speak to you on other questions. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you for the trip and speaking out against anti-Semitism. We wonder if it's possible to mention to the leaders of the Polish government. They speak a lot about the 6,992 righteous Gentiles that really sacrificed their lives to save Jews, but they seem to play down or almost criminalize the fact that there may be, there were, in fact, my parents, Poles that actually collaborate with the Nazis. So I'm wondering if you deliver the message that there should be balance and speak the truth in terms of what took place.
Well said. Well said. Thank you all very much. Thank you.